Hi, I'm Brad Rexley, former Vice President for Disney's Epcot theme park, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi there, I'm Lee Cockrell. I'm the former Executive Vice President of Walt Disney World, and Mickey Mouse was my boss. And you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Coaster Challenge podcast is here. It's time to face your fears. Get that theme park therapy and let us blow through Coaster Challenge podcast is here. Your fear can disappear. We know that theme park therapy can dry up all your tears. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? We accept because you know we're not average.
You're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast. A journey where people become fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please secure your hats and glasses and keep your hands and arms inside the podcast. It's time to accept the Coaster Challenge with your host, Andrew Locke.
This is Andrew, one of the executive producers of the Coaster Challenge podcast with you. Today I've got a guest that I'm looking forward to chatting with. His name is Oliver, and he runs the Mile High Coaster social media and YouTube channel. Welcome to the podcast, Oliver.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're proud to have you. Pleasure, absolutely. So let's start off just really simply here. Tell the audience, everyone that's listening here, about yourself and a little bit about your love of theme parks and coasters.
Yeah, so my name is Oliver. I have really loved coasters since I was about 3 or 4. As I've been going to Disney every year about that since then, with COVID being an exception, of course. And since then, I've realized this is like one of my strongest passions besides theater. So I've gone ahead and created a YouTube channel and Instagram account specifically for coasters and really started just documenting all that I do.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. So you said 3 or 4 years old. So that actually is a great segue into my next question, which is, what was the first coaster you rode at say 3 to 4 years old?
Yeah, so I'm 90% sure it was Barnstormer at Walt Disney World was my very first coaster. You know, I saw it, I'm pretty sure, you know, when it still had the old blue trains before, because I originally rode it when that area was still Toontown at Walt Disney World before it was switched to the circus theme. So I've sort of ridden both versions of Barnstormer, and so that's really fun.
Nice. This question we ask pretty much of all of our guests, and the common answers are Barnstormer, Space Mountain, you know, some of the junior coasters at Cedar Fair Park, Six Flags parks, but I think Barnstormer is probably the most common. So you're in good company there. And nowadays that's part of the expanded Fantasyland, which quite frankly, I think was a great expansion, you know, adding 7 dwarves and just fleshing out that area and the Beauty and the Beast castle. And it's just really cool how they updated that area. I really like it. So, but very good. So that was your first coaster. And how many coasters have you been on at this point? I think about 100 you sold me, right?
Under that a little bit, but it's
under 100. Okay.
Yeah, it's around 70-ish.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So of the 70 coasters you've been on, and I'm guessing it's not going to be Barnstormer, which would you say of those is the one that scared you the most?
The one that scared me the most is going to be my first looping coaster, Sidewinder at Yelich Gardens here in Denver. It was my first looping coaster. So like up until like before looping coasters, everything was fine. So all the Disney coasters besides Incredicoaster and Rock and Roller Coaster, I was like, I got this, you know, it's nothing to me. But I was really scared the first time I went on Sidewinder. And that was a really fun ride. It was also one of my first launching coasters. And so that was very fun.
Right. No, absolutely. And so would you say that inversions, is that what was kind of like the scariest thing for you with coasters to overcome?
That was that point where I was like, the launch doesn't look super scary. That's not what I'm nervous about. Just seeing that massive loop in it. It isn't even that big now that I think about it compared to some other things I've been on. But at the time I was like, wow. And also the fact that you have to climb stairs to get to the station for that one.
So Sidewinder is an old Arrow shuttle coaster, and it's in certain ways more primitive than the Schwarzkopf ones, which are from the same era. The one I remember, it was at my home park growing up, which is also, well, still a Six Flags park like Elitch Gardens used to be, was Lightning Loops at Six Flags Great Adventure, New Jersey. And that was one of my first looping coasters, not my first. But I mean, Sidewinder is a good, that's that model, that Arrow shuttle, or even a Schwarzkopf shuttle. They're good first looping coasters because it's a straight line. It's not very aggressive, not a lot of forces, and it's just a loop twice. The backwards part may be a little scary for people, certainly. But but like you, inversions were what scared me.
Yeah.
And going from not being an enthusiast, being afraid of a lot of coasters, to being not afraid of most coasters anymore, basically being born as an enthusiast, as a thuzy. That was basically after riding my first inverting coaster, which was for me was Great American Scream Machine, which is another Arrow creation at Great Adventure. Not there anymore, unfortunately. It's an old Arrow mega looper, like a Vortex or Anaconda and things like that are still around. But yeah, once I went through the many inversions, I think 7 on that one, I was like, put me on all the coasters, put me on all the looping coasters, all the inversions. I'm ready for all of it. So I can totally understand why that one would scare you the most and be kind of like the big thing for you to conquer. So let's talk about you conquering your fears there. So as you mentioned, one of the interesting things about that style of coaster is it's kind of like being in a water park. You got to climb a lot of stairs.
Yeah.
So, climbing up those stairs and, you're going up in the height and all that. Not that height was a scary thing for you, but yeah, it's kind of pretty crazy. And you're out there in the open, the coaster's right there. You can hear it, you can see it. So talk to me what it was like climbing those stairs, going through the queue that first time. What was going through your head right before you rode it?
Yeah. So the first time, my anxiety, like my scaredness just went up pretty much the entire time going up each step. And another thing that really scared me is, I don't know if this is with all the shuttle loops that are made, but this one at least, how the launch mechanism works is that when it stops, it bangs up against this big metal bar.
Yep.
And so it make these massive sounds, and that scared me going up. Then once I saw that that's what it was doing, I was like, oh, okay. But at first I had no clue what was happening with these giant banging noises.
Right.
So I was just, so scared by that. And then in the station, I, had second thoughts about, do I really want to go on this?
Right. Yeah. That sound, that banging sound. I mean, it's been, literally decades since I rode the one at Great Adventure, and even the one at Elitch. I've only been at Elitch just once, and that was in 2004. So it's been a while, almost 20 years there in that case. I don't remember, but I seem to recall them being loud, like the one at Elitch's, yes, and also the one at Great Adventure. I mean, they are primitive coasters, but again, they were built in the early 80s, maybe.
I think so, because it was at the original Elitch, and it was one of the coasters that got moved, because even Twister is now Twister 2, because they've redid some things about it. That was the only coaster to make the move.
Right. That's right. Yeah, from the original location. Right. So yeah, so I could get how the sound, the kind of very loud sound, could be intimidating too. And yeah, it is. You use the word anxiety at first there. This is all about anxiety. Fear and anxiety are the same basic thing. They're just interchangeable. But yeah, so okay, so you were like, should I get on this thing or not? Well, obviously, it's no suspense, no cliffhanger here. We know you got on it, obviously.
Yeah.
So talk to me, kind of the flip here. What happened? How did you feel after you got off the coaster?
Yeah, so I got off and I was really shocked. When I got off, I felt a little sick to my stomach, probably because it was my first loop. I don't really know why. And I was sort of just done for the day. It was towards the end of the day. They were closing at 6 that day, and I was like, yeah, we can go home now. I didn't really do anything else that day. I think I might have rode teacups once more. But then I got back on it again, and I was still really scared of it. But then that second time getting off of it, it like threw me into being an enthusiast. I just loved coasters after that. That second time, I loved it so much more than the first time.
So, okay, interesting. So that second time, was that the same day?
No, that was about a week later.
Okay, so what changed? What was different between the first ride and the second ride for you?
It was definitely, I felt a little like nauseous, a little sick to my stomach getting off that first time. And I was also like just thinking about like, oh my gosh, I just went on a looping coaster. So it was all just like I was just still sort of in shock, so I didn't like it as much. And then by the second time, I didn't feel sick to my stomach. I knew what was going to happen at that point. I knew what it felt like, and so at that point I was completely fine, and then I loved it.
Right. Now, obviously, you've been on a lot of coasters since then. So, would you say that sort of sick to your stomach feeling, was that more probably your nerves, the anxiety, than it was the motion of the coaster?
Yeah, I think it was definitely like I was just anxious that I just got off of this coaster that I'd never ridden before, and to me that looked like a very big and scary coaster. And so that's why I think I felt sick to my stomach. But then
Got it.
But then by that second time I wasn't really scared, so then I was fine.
Okay, got it. That's interesting. So we've never, we talk about these sort of stories with each of our guests, and part of the reason is because of what we're just discovering here, which is you kind of have a unique experience where, because of some of the physical effects from the anxiety, you were still feeling, by the time the ride was over that first time, and it prevented you from really being calm with the ride and accepting of it. So you kind of had to get back on it again a week later, maybe had some time in between. You knew what to expect the second time around. So you kind of eased into it by having multiple rides, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, all right. So you rode it the second time after that week later. Talk to me about how you conquering your fear on Sidewinder Elitch's, how that impacted your life.
Ever since I went on that, like I feel like I'm not really scared of anything. Like I was a little scared my first time on Slingshot, but like I was fine,
Right.
My friend was practically about to die, but I was perfectly fine on it. And so I feel like since then, like my sense of like, oh, that's a big scary coaster or whatever has just gone away. Now I look at our ride and I'm like, yeah, I'll go on that. Why not? Like I just don't have any fear around that anymore.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. So, we talk about a lot on the podcast here, the idea that fear is like a muscle, even though it's not physical, it's part of your brain. It's psychological, but like a muscle, you can work on facing it and training it and getting stronger about facing fear and not having it, even in many cases. And I strongly believe, as kind of a tangentially related to the whole theme park therapy idea, that going to parks, riding coasters, just being in the parks, and maybe not even being on thrill rides, but just being in the parks, immersing yourself, it's good for you. And it could help either if you're having anxiety just from life, or depression, or just having a stressful day, which is basically anxiety. It can help alleviate those symptoms or help avoid them to begin with. Just going regularly, you're just more stable in your life and able to deal with problems because you're having that mindfulness of being in the parks and so forth. But as far as the other thing here, like I was saying about being tangentially related, is by facing fear on coasters, on thrill rides, it helps you deal with fear better in other areas that have nothing to do with theme parks. And again, it's that idea of training your muscles. And I have seen that in myself. It wasn't necessarily from that first looping coaster, conquering my major fears there, where, I was ready to go on any coaster after that. And I've never said no to a coaster, period, ever since then. But it's taken me a number of years, since that first looping coaster, for me to get to the point where, I really feel like I can conquer fear throughout my life in many ways. So I know you're a fairly new rider yourself because you're younger. I would encourage you just to, this is not gonna be hard for you. Keep riding coasters, keep going to parks, because it'll help strengthen things. I think it's my theory, at least. But in any case, so let's take a step back further. And besides conquering that, fears on Sidewinder, would you say that coasters and theme parks have had just a positive impact on your life in any significant way, or ways?
Yeah, I've definitely met some great people through the theme park community, like you, Andrew, and some other people. I've just, it's a really uplifting community to be in. And also, I've, when I'm bored and stuff, I've learned how a lot of them work, to the point that I could probably explain Top Thrill Dragster's launch system and like host a 3-hour class about it.
Nice.
And so after doing that, it just makes me happy to ride roller coasters, learn how they work, even memorize some of the speeches and stuff.
Nice. Yeah, the engineer in me appreciates and relates to some of the things you just mentioned there. As that's what I do for a living. That's what I went to college for. I love, understanding how coasters work and thrill rides work, especially the more modern ones that are much more technically complex. But so very, very cool. And meeting friends, making, meaningful relationships. And one of the things I think is awesome about parks and coasters, I see this with myself, is it's very age independent, other than the fact that coasters, especially extreme ones and thrill rides, for people that are really old in age, or if they're really unhealthy, overweight or whatnot, it can be hard to be okay on those rides in those circumstances. But other than that, it can, you can go from like yourself, someone in your teens, to someone in their 60s and 70s. I have a couple of close friends of mine that friends of the podcast, Larry and Gene Lyons, they're in their 60s and they are healthier than a lot of people I know that are in their 30s, and they keep themselves so healthy so they can keep riding. And they're awesome. Yeah. They're amazing people. They're great friends. But, I have, friends, like I said, for some teenagers, people in their late teens or late 20s, a lot of friends in their 20s, and I'm in my 40s. And it's not like, oh, I'm seeking out younger friends. It's just a lot of people are into coasters or younger, and age doesn't matter. We're just there to ride and have fun and enjoy ourselves. And that's one of the things I love about this hobby is it kind of unites us all because we're just there to have fun,
Yeah.
So, like I said, you're a teenager, you're 14 years old, and you've been on 70 or so coasters. Obviously, you've done some traveling because you live in Colorado, and there's not a lot of parks in Colorado, Elitch being the main one. So you've obviously done some travel. I know you've been here to Florida. That's how you and I met originally. So talk to me about how your parents, I don't know if it's just your dad or both your dad and your mom, how they've been in terms of supporting you as a very young enthusiast.
Yeah, so they're great. We just travel a lot anyway. We just like going places, like going to Paris and stuff, New York, Florida. I could list a lot of places. We just like traveling. It's like our hobby as well, and like, family time. But if they're like, hey, we're going this place, and I go to our CDB and I look up the town or city, and I'm like, hey, there's a park there. Can we spend a day there? They're always really nice and just like, sure. Not always. My mom goes. Last time we were in Florida, she went all at Disney parks, but not SeaWorld. She just wanted a day off at the spa, the Grand Floridian. But
nice.
But they're just like, oh, sure. And then they just take me to whichever park is, located there. So like Paris, they actually surprised me with Paris and knew that I wanted to go to Disneyland Paris. So, I didn't really ask for that, but, they're just super supportive and, knowing that I like that and therefore finding opportunities for me to go to theme parks.
That's really cool. And I know you're going on your Paris trip here pretty soon. What, a couple of weeks? I think it's
9 days.
9 days. There you go. Yeah. So a little less than 2 weeks. So I am envious is not the right word. Let me put it this way. Younger me, when I was in high school myself, that person would have been envious. And here's the reason why. So I've been to every Disney park on the planet at this point, but that's not younger me. That's middle-aged me. I was a French student. I did a lot of French classes, going back to like middle school through all of high school. And I still know some French, but essentially senior year in high school. So this would have been, I'm going to showing my age here, but 1992. I was in the honors French class, and we did like our high school and then the Nibra high school. We did a combined honors French class trip to France. And it was sort of like the big senior trip for us. And we were there for, 10 days or so. We did Paris, we did Nice, we did the train down to Nice. And in 1992, and this was, by the way, in the spring of 92, like April, a week or so before the trip was happening, like before we went, Disneyland Paris opened. And myself and a couple of other students, we were begging our teacher, and he was a cool teacher. Remember, his name was Mr. Cohn, C-O-H-N, really nice guy. We were begging him to let us go to Disneyland Paris, and it's just not happening. So went to France, had a great time, went to Paris, and like just never got to go. So it took me 16 years, not until like the mid 2000s, to finally go to Disneyland Paris. So that's where I explain that envy. So it's awesome. You're at 14 years old. I hope you, and I'm guessing from talking to you and stuff, because you know how your parents raised you. I'm guessing you're not someone that takes for granted all this travel. Like you, right?
Yeah, I definitely realize, how lucky I am to be able to do all this, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that you're seeing, like from a young age, you're seeing the parallels of these sort of multiple kind of hobbies or passions or interests that kind of collide and converge together in a positive, good way, i.e. travel and theme parks. Like I love traveling. And I mean, it's hard to be a thuzy and not like traveling. I'm sure there are people out there that don't love it, but I love it. Another aspect for me is I love cars, as you know, I've talked offline about that. And I love road trips, and that's a form of travel. It's not just flying everywhere. So loving road trips, having nice cars and loving to spending time in my cars, driving a long time, long durations, loving flying on planes and, all this stuff. It syncs up well with the hobby. So now you mentioned that your father is like more into parks and coasters than your mom.
A little bit, yeah. But my mom really loves Disney and Universal. Definitely like this summer, Elitch enforced this super, super dumb. If you're under 16, you have to have a chaperone with you policy.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't good, but my dad was super supportive and just like, okay, well, I'll go. Tell me when and I'll be there.
Nice. Nice. So your mom likes the more of the highly themed kind of aspects of the parks.
Yeah.
And less of the thrills, right?
It definitely likes thrills, but like Elitch or a Six Flags park, it doesn't have that appeal.
Right.
Probably also because she really, really loves the shop, and there isn't a lot of super good shopping opportunities at a Six Flags park compared to Disney or Universal.
Right. Yeah, Disney Universal definitely have the better shop. Right. Yeah. Got it. Makes sense.
Well, that's because every ride has a gift shop at the end.
Right. So, most of them exit into the gift shop immediately. Yeah, imagine that. That certainly was planned that way. Okay. Yeah. Right. So, are you an only child, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. I figured from talking to you, I am as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I wasn't at 14 going to Disney parks around the world, but, certainly I've done a lot of traveling, even when I was a kid, teenager, like you at that age with my parents and stuff. But a lot of my travel was just from getting into my career, in the past 20 years, traveling for work and stuff, which has been amazing. Very thankful for that. But
yeah, okay. Same for my dad. He is he works for Masergy, which is now just got bought by Comcast. But before that, at the place he worked, before that, he got to travel a lot. And so, definitely then he's like we should go here as a family and stuff like that. And so that's really cool.
Nice. That's very cool. Very cool. And I'm really glad to see that you don't take it for granted. That's really awesome. I wanted to touch upon, by the way, something you mentioned earlier. So you talked about liking the engineering, understanding how rides work and how you could spend 3 hours lecturing people about how a catapult launch, like Topple Dragster Intamin coaster would work. That's really cool. I probably could do the same. I love launch coasters, LSMs. The LSMs are my favorite. But anyways, so, I know you're in high school now or about to be in high school.
I'm in 8th grade. So,
8th grade. Okay.
Yeah, almost there.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, you're very mature for your age. So maybe you already have an idea about this. Or maybe just because you're not in high school, you're not sure. But do you have an idea of, well, first of all, are you thinking of planning to go into college after high school?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have an idea of what you want to study, what you kind of want to go into?
Yeah, as I'm definitely I'm the theater kid. So
I knew that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a few options, but NYU as a musical theater major definitely sticks out to me.
Nice.
But I think because I think my dad said something about like how you can have like a second major or whatever. I think engineering would be really fun.
Right.
If theater doesn't work out, I could always be an engineer for RMC. So I that would be fun.
Nice. Yeah. No, I love it. And that's because those are very different majors. But because of that, you're covering two big areas, and they both corresponded to your biggest interests, theater and coasters. That's really cool. And certainly, so I'm assuming with theater, because I know you perform now and acting, singing, etc. Are you like, would you love to, like, say, be on Broadway performing on stage?
Yeah,
Okay.
that and like, big film, that's my goal, mainly Broadway. And
Nice. And even if you wind up in a traveling troupe, the benefit of that, you probably maybe already thought about this, is you can hit up some parts, right?
Yeah.
Travel. Yeah.
Because in theater you get Mondays off, and Mondays aren't generally the busiest day on at a park. So
right. Very good point. Nice. All right, excellent. So what would you say has been your craziest moment on a coaster ever?
Oh, that's really hard, but I think the Mosasaurus roll, the Mosasaurus roll on top, Velocicoaster.
Right.
That roll. Me and my friend Julia, who our trips happened to overlap by a day, so we met up at Universal.
Oh, nice.
And it was both of our first rides on that. It was her 7th credit, so like.
Oh, wow!
I got her in the coaster. That's a big one to start off with, but I got done with that, and she was like, I felt like I was gonna fall out, and I'm like, I generally wouldn't say this, but yeah, I think I'm sort of in the same boat. That was a crazy coaster. And we also, it was like it was essentially a night ride. Like the sun was setting, so like the sky was all beautiful and stuff as we were, like, it was perfect timing.
Oh yeah. So was it a night ride or was it like a twilight ride?
It was more of a twilight ride, but it I don't know what like a true night ride is like, but it felt like a night ride. That thing was hauling.
Right. So as you know, Universal Orlando is my home park. I live now 5 minutes away from there, and think I'm up to 128 rides on Velocicoaster. So I've been at it all times of the day. Do yourself a favor. It's not like I have to twist your arm on this, but next time you're at Universal, certainly, when your dad and you and your mom come back out, it'd be great to go ride Velocicoaster with you guys. Yeah, for sure. But you definitely want to ride it at night when it's dark, because some of the theming actually pops at night.
Yeah.
Of course, you're getting, another couple hours, maybe, depending upon the time of year after twilight, for it to warm up more. Plus being dark, the psychological impact of, because you can't see as well, right, it appears faster. Yeah. This is a secret of Space Mountain. Space Mountain goes like 40 miles an hour, but 40 miles an hour
feels like at least 70.
Yeah. It's psychological. It's brilliant that they did it that way, because they could have made it 70, but then it would have been a shorter ride, because it would have got, because it's a certain amount of space inside. And it's brilliant. But anyway, psychology is fun with coasters, actually. Yeah. So anyways, night rides are amazing, but I do love, especially depending on the time of year, the twilight ride's one of my favorite features, or like a sunset ride, is coming down the top hat and just seeing the sunset. So oftentimes a lot of part of the year is over in that area. It's just beautiful, and seeing like all the sky, all this clouds scattering the different colors, and it's awesome. But
it was really beautiful. I was super amazed at that, as much as I was the air time going over that top hat in the very back row.
Yeah,
and I heard back left is the best seat, and so like I'm so glad that that's the one I was. Sorry, Julia, got back right, but I'm so glad I was in back left, because I've heard a ton of people say that that's like the best seat. So I'm glad I got it.
Really? So have you ridden front yet?
No, I only got one ride when I was there, because I could not get my friend's family back on the ride. They loved it, but they were like, we're never doing that again. And I'm like, okay, but we got a couple of Hulk night rides. So,
So my 128 now rides on Velocicoaster, the vast majority of them have been with other people. Sometimes I'm going over there solo. I wind up meeting up with people later or whatnot, but most of them have been with people visiting or just local friends. But I have ridden Velocicoaster with a lot of visiting enthusiasts. I mean, it was awesome last year here in Florida, and it'll probably be the same thing again because I'm in Gwazi this year. But it already actually has been that way these past couple of months here, early part of the year. But just all the visiting enthusiasts, I've gotten firsthand, reactions after the ride, what they thought of it, and we try different seats. We go on again, and I'm a back row rider on a coaster. I am absolutely, any wooden coaster, steel coaster, whatever.
Yep, same.
And I do like back row, or the back couple rows certainly on Velocicoaster are great. But Velocicoaster, it's all about the front. So I'm very curious to see because so many of my Thuzy friends, not everyone, mind you, but the vast majority do agree that the front is the best. And the reason why is the airtime is so different up front. Yeah, it's not as a forceful oval experience, but what makes the front amazing is two things. One, when you hit the top of the dive loop before you start coming down, the ejector that you get in the front is absolutely insane.
Yeah, there wasn't any ejector in the back.
Exactly. It's very little. It's violent in the front. It's amazing. The other thing is a lot of people we think about, lift hills, but certainly more so think top hats with launch coasters is if you're in the back, you get that whip effect going over the top hat or whatnot. So, and that's certainly true with Velocicoaster. Yeah, it's definitely whippy in the back. In the front, though, yeah, you're not getting the whip, but what you're getting instead is a near stall. And what I love on that ride, just because of the angle and the stall in the front, is I've got my arms up, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Is coming down, I feel like I'm flying. And I want to thank Chuck Cole, is one of our friends of the podcast. He's the only person so far that's been a guest on this podcast twice. Good friend of ours. When he rode Velocicoaster with me and his son Chase, we spent the whole day at Universal. He shared that with me, and it was like, and I've ever since then, I'm like, yeah, it's like flying, totally is. But yeah, so anyway, bottom line is you're gonna need to experience the front for sure, Oliver.
All right.
So,
well, hopefully, maybe not 2021 because I'm going to Paris, New York, Australia, New York, and Scotland in a year. Like that's a lot. So it might not be this year that I get back to Florida. But
wow, there's some good trips there. Are you going to be getting on DC Rivals when you go to Australia?
Yeah, sadly, Australia is. I'm part of a group called the Colorado Children's Chorale that does these big international tours. And so it's a group, and they aren't gonna let us But if this was with my family, I would be able to get on DC Rivals. It's just because it's a touring choir, I sadly won't be able to get on.
I understand. I get it. That's too bad, but you'll have to go back for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Mosasaurus roll. This one last, getting back to what you said, this one last comment here. So as you know, with here in 2022, the Mosasaurus roll, a lot of people, myself included, consider to be the best inversion ever.
Yep, I agree.
And it's pretty much uncontested. Again, at the end of the day, it's all just our opinions, and we can have our opinions. It's fine. But of course, Iron Gwazi with its, the technical term is the barrel roll down drop, what's known as the death roll, more colloquially. Yeah, they compare it to each other. And I've been on Gwazi now. I don't keep track as actively as I do with Velocicoaster. I think a couple dozen times on Gwazi, daytime, nighttime. That barrel roll down drop is amazing, especially at night because the coaster's warmed up.
Right. But
you're going into the structure, and it's so tight in there at night. It just makes it more intense, psychologically speaking. As good as it is, because it is very forceful, the Mosasaurus roll is still more epic. Yeah. But curious to see what you think when you get out here again next, maybe in a couple of years, and ride Iron Gwazi. But
yeah, that'll be. I can't wait to ride it. So 2023.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah,
it's just years. 2022 has enough trips planned. We might not get back to Florida this year.
Totally understand. Makes sense. But yeah, craziest moment on a coaster for you. In summary, Mosasaurus roll. Yep. Totally get it. It's such an epic inversion for sure. So I think I know the answer to the next question here. Speaking of epic, but what is your favorite coaster?
Velocicoaster.
Right. Yep.
That's my number one.
Yep. From talking to you and seeing stuff you post and reacting and interacting on that. Yeah, I figured it was Velocicoaster. I wasn't 100%, but okay. Well, you and I have the same number one. It's David's number one as well. So we're all there with you. So, all right. So the other end of things, what is your least favorite coaster?
Yeah, it's going to be any Blazing Buckaroo. I like those E&F Miller coasters. They're just, I think that's what they're called. Yeah. So it's either that at Elitch. No, Candy Cane Coaster at the Santa Park up in the mountains here in Colorado. Is definitely the worst. It was rough. Right. It's just a kiddie coaster. It was just a credit. It wasn't anything.
Okay. Yeah. I've not been there. I think no, I've not been on Blazing Buckaroo because it wasn't there at Elitch.
You have the height thing too. You can't go on it unless.
Oh yeah, right. It's your restriction. But yeah, so it's nothing exciting because it's just a little kid coaster. Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you don't have any like really hated coasters that are like, more larger coasters that are just painful or, anything like that?
I don't think so. I've always been one of the more positive enthusiasts where like, sure, I might not really like it, but I'm not like, oh, this is terrible, it should be removed, and ranting about it. I've never been that.
Okay. So you see, you have, an SLC there at Elitch Gardens, your home park, and you're okay with those.
Oh, it's bad. But here's the thing. Go to opening because it runs slow enough that your head doesn't bang. And then it's like a sort of actually a good coaster.
Right.
And then another trick I found is put your left ear to the left ear pad. And if
Oh.
you stick it there throughout the thing, your head doesn't bang. And, it makes it a little better. But,
Nice.
Great Nor'easter is still like the only quote unquote good RMC. SLC. That's the only good SLC, really.
Gotcha.
Everything else
Okay.
is just okay. I think, but I can still like have fun on that mostly just because, all my GP friends are super scared of it. So just seeing their reactions from it, hearing their screams, I just get joy out of it. So that's why, SLCs aren't like super, super bad. I don't like them really, but I don't hate them because I get to torture people with it.
Right. Interesting. Gotcha. Yeah, that's funny. All right. So, as I, mentioned when I introduced you at the beginning of the interview here, you have a channel, social media and the YouTube channel that you're developing, Mile High Coasters.
Yep.
And how long has Mile High Coasters been a thing for you?
I created it in November because I was about to go on that Florida trip and I wanted to film vlogs for it. So it was either like late October or November it was late October, early November. Yeah.
So less than a year
it's
ago.
brand new.
Okay. Oh, wow. Nice. Less than a year ago. So do you have any specific plans for it? Anything that maybe you're going to differentiate yourself from other YouTube channels?
Yeah. So I have the last two vlogs of that Florida trip finally coming out. March 19th and March 25th are the last two that are coming out. And then I'm going to film 2 Paris vlogs because I'm at Disneyland Paris for 2 days. And then I also plan on filming some POVs along with the vlogs. I bought a GoPro.
Okay.
With the official hand and wrist strap.
Yep.
I'm gonna film some POVs, and then also for the vlogs, I'll film some reverse POVs to capture all my GP's friends' reactions. Sort of like how Latour Ryan has like the Coaster Idiot series. I'm trying to think of a name like GP Friends or something where I just take all my GP friends to Elitch and just capture their reactions on all the coasters. Because to me, when I just sit there with my hands up like their reactions are always hilarious because
right.
they've never been on any of like this stuff. And my friend Julie, who I mentioned earlier, had been on one whole coaster in her lifetime. And I got and I was like, you want to go on the SLC? So
right. So you mentioned Coaster Idiots, Latour Ryan. So in other words, looking for like something like to have a comedic aspect to your channel.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying with the GP. I'm sure you could probably come up with, I love like puns and like, using the same letter or multiple words. And I'm sure you can come up with something for GP that rhymes with it or something. But yeah, that could be fun.
Previews aren't till April 24th. So I got a little ways to go to figure it out before I film the first Elitch vlog. So
right, for previews at Elitch. Right. Gotcha. Right.
And it's funny because I actually have a Matilda performance on the 23rd, which is technically the first preview day. And then the next day I'll go to preview day number 2, 24th. So
okay, gotcha. That'll be fun. So yeah, okay, interesting. So by the way, when you go to Paris, is the only parks you're going to are the 2 Disney parks?
Yeah.
Okay, because what I was wondering is if you were going to be going to other parks there in Europe where you could perhaps get your 100th coaster while in Europe, which that'd be really epic.
Yeah, I don't think so, unless like we have time. But we got a private tour of, I forget what it is, but we get picked up from a hotel or on Mercedes and we get to like tour some cool things in Paris. So
nice.
It's like the castle or whatever. I don't really remember. My parents just told me that we booked it. So yeah.
Okay.
So we're doing a lot more of tourist stuff, and the Disneyland Paris was like the coaster part of the trip, and then the rest is just normal tourist stuff.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm curious here. This wasn't in the list I gave you, but honestly, be honest, because there's no wrong answer. Going to places like Paris, just any other places you've traveled to. Well, okay, so with your parents, you get to go to parks. Do you like the things you wind up doing besides the parks, the touristy things? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, I went to New York for the first time since I was 3, summer of 2021. This past summer. And yeah, we went to Coney Island, and that was great. Had a great time there.
Right.
Got to ride Soaring Eagle, which was at Elitch at one point, so that was really cool.
Oh, nice.
It was relocated, but yeah, I love that. I really like I said, that's like the family's hobby is traveling and doing the touristy stuff. That's like, it's like if I had a list of like my hobbies, it would be theater, coasters, and then tourist stuff, because I just love traveling and doing all that as well.
Okay. Now, of course, going to New York, I know you've seen shows on Broadway, and I think you and I have talked about that offline.
Yeah.
And obviously you went to Coney Island. What was your tourist-wise? What was your favorite thing you did in New York when you went there?
It was either seeing Hamilton, because it's Hamilton on Broadway. You can't go wrong with that unless you don't like Hamilton. But then also, I think the coolest thing was doing the boat tour, the Circle Line tour. Manhattan. Yep. I had a great time with that. And then a close second would be going to the top of, I almost said the Eiffel Tower. I'm in Paris mode. What's it called?
One World Trade Center, or the Freedom Tower?
No.
Empire State Building?
Yeah, Empire State Building. That's the name of it.
Nice.
That would be a close second, because we went to the top of that, and I have a lot of really cool photos from that.
Oh yeah, I love going to the top of tall buildings. One of the things I do when I travel, my touristy things, is going to the top of tall buildings and taking pictures and just the experience. And yeah, I'm not afraid of heights, and it sounds like you aren't either. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
I can do a sky coaster any day.
Oh yeah, same. Absolutely. Yep. So the Circle Line I've been on many times, and that's one of my things when I take someone to New York City. I love showing people around parks, tourist things, cities that I've been to. Yeah. I love doing that. I love playing tour guide and catering to them, not just saying, oh, we're going here next. But one of the things I encourage people to do is when we first get to New York City, if they've never been, is to go on the Circle Line first, like the daytime first. That way you get an overview of what's there and just get a sense of it. So David, who you met here before we started recording, he's the founder of Coaster Challenge. The other executive producer and a great friend of mine, we're talking about, he's never been to New York City. I grew up, that's my hometown, and I've been there many times. I know it like the back of my hand. So he's nervous about going there. So he wants someone to be a guide. I'm like, David, I'm your man. I'll be a guide. Yeah. So we're both excited about doing that at some point, maybe this year, maybe next year. So I will be encouraging him to the Circle Line first. So I'm glad that you got to do that. It's a great experience. Just the bridges and all the landmarks and
yeah. Well, if you're there Memorial Day weekend, I'll be there. So
oh, nice. I think we might actually be in Silver Dollar City that weekend. We'll see.
Ooh,
but
fun.
Yeah, perhaps. But
yeah, we'll be seeing Plaza Suite, Beetlejuice, and then Hamilton again. So
oh, nice. Enjoy. That's awesome. All right. So one kind of last main question to ask you, Oliver, we ask all of our guests, is you have a kind of sense of our mission about facing fears and having better lives, theme park therapy and all that. So can you think of, based on maybe your own experience or just things can you think of any advice that you'd like to give those that are listening in that regard?
Yeah, I can definitely think of some. So just try it, I've definitely, maybe pushed a little harder than I should have to get people on your rides. But then afterwards, they absolutely love it. And, they were super nervous. So I definitely think, if you just try it once, sure, you might not like it, but then that you don't have to do it again. From my experience, it's just if you try something, there's not a lot that you have to lose from just riding a coaster or going on a slingshot or going on a sky coaster. So just try it and you might really, really love it, like some of my friends. Or you might be like, I'm not doing that ever again. That was terrible. But in all likelihood, you're going to love it. And then therefore you're going to, really enjoy coasters for the rest of your life.
Right. No, that's good advice. And yeah, most coasters are just a couple, 2-3 minutes long. I mean, rides like Steel Vengeance and the Beast that are longer, certainly the Beast especially, those are usual. Most coasters are, or Hagrid's is almost, it's like 4+ minutes. But yeah, most coasters are just a couple minutes long. And so it's not like it's going to be the rest of your life. So good point. That's good advice. Thank you. So the very last thing I'd like to do here, Oliver, is we already kind of mentioned your channel, but just, share social media, your YouTube channel, whatever you'd like to put out there to the world for people to check out, how people can find them.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. At mile.high.coasters for coasters, and then just Mile High Coasters on YouTube for coasters. And then if you also want the theater side of things, oliver.strubbe.official, you can find all my theater stuff. And then you can also, and if you just look up Oliver Strubbe on YouTube, you can see some of the projects that I've been in and the theater side of things too.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Oliver. It's been awesome. I'm talking to you here and more formally, kind of talking about your coaster pursuits and the theater stuff and the tourist stuff. And I think, I hope that you have an awesome trip to Paris and France, and I hope it's epic and going to your first international Disney resort. I look forward to hearing and seeing your photos and all that on social media, but hearing what you think of everything there. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to see more of us, we upload every Friday. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all at Coaster Challenge. Links are in the description below. Thanks for joining us here today.